Okay, let's talk about something really significant today. This powerful idea you find woven through Scripture, that how a nation treats Israel directly impacts its own destiny, its future, its stability.
That's right. And it's not just some abstract concept. It stems from a foundational promise given way back to Abraham, basically. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse.
Genesis 12.3, right?
Exactly. And the claim is this isn't just ancient history, it applies now to all nations.
So our task here is pretty clear. Let's unpack how this principle actually works. What does it look like on the ground, historically and, well, even today?
Well, historically, the pattern is quite stark. Look at ancient Egypt. They oppressed the Israelites, and what happened? Plagues, devastation, total judgment,
Hmm.
or Babylon. They conquered Jerusalem, acted cruelly, and their empire crumbled not long after. There's a direct line drawn.
Okay, so those are ancient examples, but you mentioned it applies today. What's a more modern illustration of this curse side of the coin?
The clearest, most sobering example pointed to is Germany under Hitler.
Right. The Holocaust.
An unimaginable curse upon God's people. And the result for Germany? Utter devastation and war, being physically divided, economic ruin for decades. It's presented as a direct fulfillment of that Genesis promise.
That's a heavy example.
Right.
But it does raise the question, is this presented as something beyond just, historical cause and effect? Bad decisions leading to bad outcomes.
Well, the perspective is that the moral stance invites those outcomes, that a nation's alignment with this principle affects its vulnerability to, say, military failure or economic collapse. And it's not over. This principle applies right now to all nations and points towards an end times scenario.
And times. How so?
The prophet Joel in chapter 3 speaks about God gathering all nations for judgment and the specific criteria, how they treated his people, Israel, and crucially, whether they divided up my land.
Dividing the land. That really
Yeah.
jumps out, especially in the modern politics.
Yeah.
So any push for territorial compromise, especially concerning Jerusalem, that's seen as incredibly dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. Joel 3.2 makes it explicit. Interfering with God's designated land for his people puts a nation directly in line for judgment. It's presented as a non-negotiable red line.
Wow.
And other prophets back this up. Ezekiel 38, Zechariah 14, they describe future coalitions of nations coming against Jerusalem and the outcome. Dramatic divine destruction for those nations, dividing the land, attacking Jerusalem. It's a fatal move.
Okay, so we've seen the judgment side, past and future.
Yeah.
What about the blessing? How does this principle supposedly play out for nations that support Israel? Let's take the United States, for example. There's a strong argument that its success is linked to this.
Absolutely. The U.S. is often highlighted. Think about it. America was among the very first to recognize Israel back in 1948.
Right, almost immediately.
And since then, consistent support, billions in aid, yes, but also crucial diplomatic protection, especially, at the UN where things can get pretty hostile towards Israel.
Okay, so diplomatic support, financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
How does that translate into national blessing, like tangible prosperity and power? What's the connection made?
The connection made is direct. This consistent support, this blessing of Israel, is seen as a primary reason the U.S. became arguably the most prosperous and powerful nation in history. The promise worked both ways.
But is that blessing guaranteed forever?
Well, that's the warning now. That historic blessing is seen as being at risk. There are shifts, maybe apathy, maybe active pressure to divide the land, alongside a general turning away from foundational principles. Psalm 9 warns that nations forgetting God are held accountable.
So the bottom line here, for you listening, is that Scripture presents this unbreakable link. National destiny tied to how a nation engages with Israel. It's a choice. Bless or curse. There's really no middle ground offered.
Exactly. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. This isn't just about some far-off future judgment. The principle implies God judges nations in this life, in real-time history. So if any nation, America included, steps back from supporting Israel, turns away from these scriptural guidelines, those blessings we've seen, they're absolutely on the line. The clock, you could say, is ticking. And that really puts the responsibility back on the citizens, doesn't it? What direction would they choose?